How's it going, everybody? Welcome to today's video in which we will be discussing miniatures. But not any miniatures, but specifically the Reaper Pathfinder metal miniatures. I'll be honest, I'm fairly new to the miniature painting hobby, and I specifically started for playing Pathfinder 2nd edition because you kind of need to have some miniatures, a map, specifically a battle map, so you can keep track of flanking and positions in the game. So I'm not a pro in miniature painting, so please don't expect too much, but I wanted to give you a quick review of those Pathfinder metal miniatures that I got, and maybe you can learn something from that. Maybe you're interested in getting some miniatures for playing Pathfinder 2nd edition yourself. So are those miniatures those you should buy, or are they not? I'll tell you in a minute. So the miniatures come with a square slot base from Reaper as well. They are kind of the normal bases you would expect from Reaper. Of course, you will have to use some kind of slot base, but you don't really have to use those. I wouldn't recommend not using a slot base because I think fixing those miniatures to a base without having the slot thing might be very fragile, since often they have very small legs, you know, small connection points to bases, and it would become kind of fragile and finicky, I think. So I really recommend using a slot base for those, but other than that, you can pretty much, of course, hide the slot. You won't even notice it afterwards. And also, I'm kind of a fan of the square bases. I think they work better with battle maps since it's on a square raster. But if you're a bigger fan of round bases, you should try to get some round slot bases. Of course, you'll also have to remove some bits and pieces from the miniatures because there are some kind of connection points where there shouldn't be any metal, so you will have to need some normal tweezers, pliers, whatever to remove that. It's not really big of a deal. Also, you should probably get some files just to remove some of the stuff that's poking out of the miniature afterwards. And yeah, the miniatures are priced around 5 to 10 euros for a medium-sized miniature. Of course, there are more expensive ones. I think the most expensive one is actually at 43 euros right now. Of course, those are EU prices. I'm from EU, if you didn't know, so all of that might be different in your region. I can't guarantee anything, but yeah, there are some bigger ones. You have some for 16, 15 euros. This one in particular, it's the Whispering Tyrant, actually, if you don't know the Pathfinder lore a bit. It's the one that chills on Lake Ankathan on the island, you know. He was like around 15 euros. You do have to assemble some of those. For example, with this dude, you had to attach the cape, and you will also, I would recommend using some green stuff to fill some gaps on some of those. For example, when you look at the cape, there are some small gaps in between his kind of shoulder plates and the cape. So yeah, I really recommend you get some green stuff to go with. It's not really necessary too much, but yeah, I also use it, for example, to fill the gaps in between the base and the miniature when I put them in the slot. Also, sometimes I just put some small hills on the base or some uneven ground, so it's not just flat. But because you need to assemble some of those, you will also need some nice glue. I personally did get the Loctite Precision Super Glue. It's kind of a go-to, I think. I've read about it on the internet. Most of this stuff I just looked up on the internet myself. So like I said, I'm not really a pro. I just grabbed some stuff that was recommended on the internet. But yeah, with that, it works. Sometimes parts don't seem to stick too well. You might need a few tries until some things like swords or, you know, maps they are holding, stuff that they are holding most of the time, they kind of tend to break apart at some times, but you can just reattach them. It's not really a big deal, and yeah, I think it's manageable, really. It really is manageable. So yeah, of course, when you get them, they are not primed, obviously. They are just that kind of shiny metal material. So you will need to prime them. Sometimes you will need quite a bit of primer because this shiny metal, it shines through if there's just a thin layer of color. But even that, it's not too big of a deal. When they're primed, you can kind of slot them in the base. You can start painting all that. It's pretty straightforward. I also like that there isn't too much assembly. I'm not really a big fan of miniatures where you have to attach the arms, the torso, the head. But I think the biggest pro of those miniatures are that there are some very Pathfinder specific ones. For example, I have this Technic League captain. You probably would not find too many miniatures that are fitting the Technic League kind of setting because they're kind of specific. You do have some cool... Well, they're not really specific for Pathfinder, but the goblins, for example, from Pathfinder, they look kind of different from other goblins you see in most games. So I really like that they have a goblin pack, actually. You get 3 at once for quite a reasonable price, I think. Because I really like the goblin look in Pathfinder, I really dig it. But I have to say, mostly the miniatures from the Pathfinder universe are player characters, I would say, or maybe NPCs. There aren't too many monsters. I know there are some mites. Of course, you can also have goblins as combat enemies, monsters, whatever. There's a sin spawn, a dragon, an ogre, a troll, but it's not too many monsters in comparison. You have very, very many characters. There are also, of course, specific characters from, I guess they are from the first edition adventure paths. I don't really know them, so I can't really tell too much, but yeah, you have some specific characters. Of course, you can also use Hell Knights as enemies, but as for now, there aren't really too many monsters. So there aren't really a lot of undead. There aren't a lot of vampires, zombies, or I don't know, like specific Pathfinder creatures. I don't know, I would love to see some Grindylows as miniatures, or I don't know, a Tooth Fairy, whatever it is. I hope they will get a lot more monsters because, like I said, as of now, it's mostly specific characters. Of course, you will need just as many monsters, and as for now, there aren't too many there. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Because of that, I actually did get some more miniatures that are also from Reaper. They're also metal miniatures. I think they are Darkhaven Legends, most of them, because there's tons of undeads. As you see, I have a lot of skeletons. I have a lot of vampires, zombies, because in my current campaign, which is actually in Kionin right now, there are obviously a lot of undead. They did go along the coast in my intro of the campaign, and with that being just meters away from Lake Enkathan, of course there will be a lot of undead. Did get some rats, and I also did get some player characters or NPCs that are also not from the Pathfinder metal miniatures. If you need a lot of monsters, which I guess we all do, for that you can't really expect much from the Pathfinder metal miniatures. Of course, I'm pretty hyped that I have the Whispering Tyrant, but I'm actually not sure if I'm gonna have a fight between him and some players at some point. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, for monsters, get some different ones, or get the ones that are there, but also get some different ones because it's just not enough. So let's talk about quality. If I compare the Pathfinder 2nd edition, well, they're not 2nd edition, are they? But the Pathfinder metal miniatures to, let's say, the Darkhaven ones from Reaper, they are better, I think. I think the Pathfinder miniatures have a lot more detail. There was also a lot less effort to remove some bits and pieces that were still attached to the metal miniatures, less filing of some sharp edges they had. And I think they also just look a bit better. You also get them with the base, which is good. Of course, the Darkhaven ones, for example, they have those kind of bases already. Well, they are standing on some kind of ground, but that sometimes makes it a bit difficult to attach them to bases you have. So I always have to kind of even the ground with some green stuff around them. It doesn't look bad, of course. It's sometimes even a bit cooler, but you will have a bit more effort for that. So I kind of dig that they are with the slot bases. Quality-wise, I really have no complaints. The fact that you don't have to assemble too much is pretty good. Sometimes they make you assemble stuff, and it often makes sense because, like with this guard with this shield over here, if you attach a shield first, you won't really be able to paint underneath it, and you can kind of look underneath the shield when you attach it. So it also makes a lot of sense often when they tell you to attach stuff later on. But yeah, overall I think the Pathfinder miniatures are really worth their price. They are of pretty good quality. They look fantastic, especially when you just prime them. You know, you get those metal miniatures, you're like, oh, okay, they look cool. But then you prime them and you see all those details on the miniatures themselves, and they just look pretty good. They just look very good. And especially if you are like me, you like to have some metal miniatures, you like to have some weight on your miniatures, go for them. I really recommend them. If you're like me and don't play war games too much, you just need them for Pathfinder, D&D. Of course, you can also use them for D&D. Nobody will stop you. But with some of those, especially if you have some more specific wishes for miniatures, some of those are specific to Pathfinder, so check them out. It's not sponsored, obviously. What am I, 33 subscribers? Of course, this is not sponsored, but yeah, just wanted to give you my personal opinion on them, my personal review. Yeah, I hope this review was helpful and you did get kind of an idea what to expect from those. I mean, they are miniatures, of course, you kind of know what to expect, but I just wanted to tell you how nice they look. I'm kind of a big fan, really. It's kind of astonishing how nice they look, but yeah. I'm rambling, I'm sorry. So yeah, if you like this video, I could help you with my opinion on those miniatures. Why don't you subscribe? It's obviously free and I would really appreciate it. Definitely leave me a comment on if you want to get some of those. If you're maybe not a big fan of those, I mean, of course, you can have your own opinion. Until then, have an absolutely absolutely great day, night, and whatever time day it is where you are living. And until then, goodbye.